Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. Welcome back. We are doing a regular episode today. Nothing special. I am back. It's crazy. I only took a week off, but I already feel a little bit rusty. So if you watched last week's video, I actually filmed that video 2 weeks ago because my dad was in town last week. He was here for his birthday, so we spent some time together and just enjoyed the weather and enjoyed him being here and got to do a little bit of venturing out and also relaxing, which was really nice. So with that, I actually ended up having kind of a surprise project to work on. So I don't really have a ton to show today, but I've got a few things and then a few things to chat about. So this might be a shorter episode than usual, but sometimes I say that and that doesn't actually work out, so we'll see. And also, if you hear some banging around in the background, Bagel found his ball and he is playing with it and running around the living room. So you might see him kind of wandering around with his ball. Actually, if I throw it, he might go get it. Bagel, go get it. And that was off screen. There he goes. Okay. I guess we'll go ahead and get started with what I'm wearing. I realized for a garment that I chatted about so much, I haven't actually worn this on a full episode. So I figured today I would wear my Field Day Cardigan. This is a top-down drop shoulder cardigan by Ozetta. And let's see. So if you are new here, I did not meet gauge with this, so I had to go down a needle size, and then I still had to knit a size 1 to achieve the fit of a size 2. So my gauge was just way off from the pattern. But I ended up finally getting the fit I wanted, so this fits exactly like the size 2 should fit. And I used US 6 or 4 millimeter needles to achieve that gauge. And the yarn I'm using is Hazel Knits Lively DK in the colorway Shanty Pants. If you have watched me before, then you will know I have talked and talked and talked about how much I love this colorway. It's perfection. You also know how much I love Hazel Knits, so that won't be a surprise if you've seen me before. But yeah, this is a great pattern. I just checked again. It's only $6.50 on Ravelry, so I really recommend this one if you are looking for kind of an oversized cardigan pattern. Now, I will say I don't think this is necessarily the most beginner-friendly pattern, just because there is some unique construction that you kind of start with the back and you do some short row shaping in the back to build out the shoulders and all of that. Nothing super unusual. I mean, it's different than a lot of the cardigans that I've seen, but it's nothing crazy. So like if you're okay with a little bit of flat construction, you should definitely give this a shot and don't be afraid of it. I just don't know if this would be a great beginner pattern if you've never knit a sweater before. So just keep that in mind. But anyway, moving on. So why don't we start with, we can chat about the one finished object that I have, but I don't actually have it with me. So while my dad was here, I've never knit anything for my dad before, but you know, like I said, it was his birthday while he was here, and I thought about knitting him a pair of socks for before he got here, but I wasn't entirely sure. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever kind of seen this, but like some people are really interested in what you knit, but they don't necessarily want knitwear for themselves, which is totally fine. And you don't necessarily want to, 1, spend all the time doing it, and 2, make them feel pressured to want it if it's not something they actually think they're going to wear. So when he got in town, I decided to kind of like sit him down and be like, okay, so I had an idea for your birthday present. I was thinking about making you a pair of socks, but like, please be honest. If you don't want knitted socks, if you do not want wool socks, let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings and we will pivot. And he was actually super, super excited about it. He's a watcher of the podcast, so hi, Dad, because I'm sure you're watching this. But he's been watching my podcast since the beginning, and he kind of right away was like, I really like those Viking socks. So, and I had a feeling that that's what he was gonna want. It's kind of ironic that the one pattern that gave me the most grief in the beginning because of sizing, I've now knit 3 times. And it's not even really a pattern, it's just a formula I used. So if you haven't seen my previous episodes, I actually got the colorwork motif from this book, which is 150 Scandinavian motifs. Let me see, I'm gonna pull this up and not show the chart. So, as I destroy this book. So the chart includes these ships and the little waves, and then, I mean, just the little like staggered motif. And so the first pair of these I knit forever ago. They were meant for Thomas, but they were too small. Side note, so I'm using, for all of them, I have used Cascade Heritage, which is Cascade sock yarn. And what I learned about knitting with this for color work, well, really for anything, is it's definitely kind of a finer fingering weight yarn. So, depending on the sock yarn you get, sometimes they'll be a little bit plumper, sometimes they'll be a little bit finer. And so even though I have knit him color work socks before that fit fine just by going up a needle size, these did not. And I think it's a combination of the yarn being a little bit finer and the fact that the motif itself has a lot of you carrying floats. So it's not just, kind of a one-to-one staggered color change. There's actually like you're carrying floats a lot. And I think when you start to carry floats and have longer floats, that's when you start to see it get even tighter. So with all of that, when I was working on Thomas's, he's going crazy. When I was working on Thomas's socks, I realized after knitting almost both of them that they weren't gonna fit him, held off, eventually came back after I did one of these recap episodes and talked about, like languishing whips, and kind of got my mojo back to start a new pair for him, which I finished. They fit him great. I ended up taking that original pair and making them for myself. So even though they're technically the next size up, they actually fit me well, and same with Thomas. So with Thomas, he's normally 72 stitches and that works great. But with this one, I had to go up to 80 stitches and go up a needle size. And that was the perfect formula for him. So I took all of that data and I ended up doing that exact formula for my dad's sock. Their feet are close in size, a little bit different. So I really just had to adjust the length. But the formula that I ended up doing is, so I still did 72 stitches for the cuff, which I did a 2x2 cuff. And then the first round of stockinette after the cuff, I do a rapid increase where I make one right every 9 stitches. And so I did that for both Thomas's socks and then my dad's socks. So anyway, so I used that formula, and basically my dad was here for 7 days. And so I got started, I cast on the first sock the night of day 2 that he was here. And I finished, blocked, woven the ends of both socks the day before he left. And amazingly enough, so I was able to get his socks blocking, like I washed the socks and then put them on sock blockers at about, I would say like 3 p.m. the day before he had to leave. And we had to leave like 9 a.m. the next morning to get to the airport. And by that evening, they were mostly dry. So it worked out perfectly. Like I kind of can't believe that I knit these colorwork socks with my dad here visiting, doing stuff. I knit those socks in like 5 or 6 days, which is nuts. So I guess, when there's a will, there's a way. So I will pop up a picture if I haven't already. I didn't get to really take many photos just because I didn't have much time with them finished. And by the time they were dry, it was dark. So, but I mean, if you've been watching me for any length of time, then you have already seen these socks twice over. So yeah, this is the most pairs of a single pattern of socks that I have knit thus far. Is that accurate? Maybe not, because I think I knit 3 pairs of the Sirach socks, but color work motif all the way through. Yeah, so anyway, long story short, that is my finished object. That's the project that I worked on while my dad was here, which means that I didn't actually get a lot of time to work on much else. So I've got a little bit of progress on my other pattern, but not a ton. And that's why I don't know that this will necessarily be the longest episode, but we'll see. So just, I guess, to give a quick little bit of info about those socks, if you are interested and you haven't seen before. Oh, okay. Anyway, Tuna is super excited by the mannequin. Another side note, I feel like today is going to be a day of side notes. The last couple of episodes, I shot my videos a little bit later in the afternoon, which is when the cats kind of sleep. And I actually had several comments that were like, where are the cats? We missed the cats. So I made a point to shoot earlier in the day when they are in full form, which they are. So there might be a little extra cat hijinks today, but that was intentional. We'll see how I feel about that, because now they're kind of climbing on everything. Anyway, tangent number 12 aside. So if you are curious about the yarn that I used for these Viking socks, because I have had a few questions about them. So like I said, it was Cascade Heritage, which is the sock yarn, which I cannot speak highly enough about. Like, you get a whole 100-gram hank for like $12 US, which is incredible. It's a great price. The colors are super consistent. I had to buy a color a year apart and the colors were identical. I could not tell them apart. So the main color is denim. The lighter blue color, which is the wave motif, is anise. The ships I did in the color camel. And then the little white motifs are in the color limestone. And so those are the 4 colors I used. It actually worked out as a great stash buster for me too, because after doing all of those different socks over different periods of time, I actually had 3 balls of this denim, just because I had my original ball that I had used when I was knitting them 2 at a time. And then I had another ball where I had my original ball that I'd broken in 2 for the 2 at a time socks that I had worked on. And then I had the new ball that I had in 1 ball that I hadn't broken apart, because I decided the next set to knit 1 full sock, make sure it fits, and then knit the next one. So what actually ended up happening was my 2 smaller balls that I had broken apart were the perfect amount for each sock. Like, literally when I was done, I had like just, maybe a couple of feet left of the yarn to trim off, which was amazing. And then I just used this for the heels for both of them, because I did an afterthought heel. So it was great. So I went from having like 3 balls of this to now just having 1 little one. So it just kind of helped. I love it when I can really dig into my stash and actually make a dent and even like eliminate a whole ball of yarn. It feels very satisfying. So that's the yarn for that. Again, love Cascade Heritage for socks. Like, especially if you want to do color work, they've got a great color range. And again, the color is very consistent. So you're not going to get really any tonal variation. So if you want a very solid color throughout, I think that's a great one to do. But keep in mind, I do think that the yarn is a little bit finer than some of the maybe more like indie dyed or commercial yarns you might find. So keep that in mind with your gauge. But yeah, that's my finished object for the week or 2 that I've been out. Next up, we will talk about my biggest work in progress, and really the only other work in progress I have right now that I can show. And that is, let me see if I can hold it up, my Robinia sweater. Look at that. So the last time, I really should have put a progress keeper on this, but the last time I showed this, I think, if I can see where I blocked it, it was just under the armpit. So I think it was about here. I think that's about where we were when I showed it. And if you watched my video 2 weeks ago, then you'll know I was I was all over the place. Honestly, I really was. I was all over the place about the fit. I did not at all achieve gauge, which I knew I wouldn't because I used different yarns. I used a thinner yarn, and I did a ton of gauge math intentionally to figure out, based on the size that she was recommending and then the sizes she was showing, I really wanted the fit of her blue version, which is, I think it has it's about 10 inches of positive ease, whereas the yellow version has about 6 inches of positive ease. And I just really kind of liked that oversized look. So based on my gauge, I'm looking at my notes off to the side. So her recommended gauge was 16 stitches per 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and I was getting 18 stitches. So obviously I was getting a tighter gauge, which was no surprise. It's about what I expected. And so I did a ton of gauge math based on what size I should knit, and then with my gauge, if I wanted a certain amount of ease, which was about like 8 to 10 inches, then what made sense was for me to do the size 3. So essentially doing size 3 at my gauge would give me about 8.6 inches of positive ease, whereas size 4 was going to give me a little over 12 inches of positive ease, and I worried that 12 was too much. So then I started the whole thing, and I had gotten to just under the armpit, and it's so hard to tell, especially with a drop shoulder, because when you knit a drop shoulder before you've added the sleeves, it's just a square, it's just a little box, and it looks crazy, and you're like, this isn't gonna fit, this looks so weird. And like, I know this, but there's always that little seed of doubt before it's gotten to any sort of point where you know what it's gonna actually sit like on you, because even when you measure for a size, sometimes you really just need to see it on your body to know whether or not it's gonna work. And so I was just kind of all full of doubt. I was nervous that maybe I should have gone up to the size 4 because maybe I wanted the really big oversized look, but then I was also like, no, I really want the tighter fit, so maybe, did I pick the right size, or maybe I should have even gone a size down? I was all over the place. So if you watched that, thank you for your patience with me while I just kind of like had my crazy thoughts about what do I do. So what I ended up doing was blocking it at that stage because I just really wanted to see what it was going to do and how differently it was going to hang. And I showed a before and after photo of how it looked, and it actually did exactly what I had hoped. It did exactly what I planned. And so it's funny how you can do, sorry, I've got yarn in my mouth. Even with all the planning, like I did all the math, I did the gauge swatch, I saw how it was blocked versus unblocked. But I don't know, I still get nervous until it's more garment size because extra weight can change how things go. Also, one thing I didn't account for when I was doing all of that was that you are using a smaller needle size up at the top for everything, which meant that the shoulder area didn't have the width I was quite expecting. It blocked out to be about where it should be anyway, but it was just one of those things where I didn't quite think that part through. The other funny thing I was saying is that I always like to pick a pattern that is not my design because it's when I can turn my brain off and just knit. And so the irony of me having to like do this level of work on it when I really just wanted to kind of like trust the pattern and not think about it. But I'm glad I did. So again, long story short, I blocked it and then felt way better about it. So I've done, yeah. So basically from here, so like all of this is new because basically at that point I realized that, yep, this looks great. The shoulders blocked the way I wanted. The neck opened up quite a bit. That was honestly one of the things I was most worried about, was having a really tight boat neckline. In my most and least worn fall knits video, I do talk about my Weekender Light, where the one thing I would change if I could is giving myself more of an open neckline, because that kind of, it literally is a square with a slit in it. And so it does kind of like sit right at the neck, and it can be a little bit uncomfortable at times. And so that was the one thing I was a little curious to see how this was going to fare. But one thing I really like is actually how she's done the short row shaping in both the front and the back in a way that it helps to open that neckline up a little bit. So I'm really impressed with that. I will say I was a little disappointed, especially going through this to kind of rework it for my size. I don't know why there aren't more sizes. I thought that was a little bit strange because the colorwork motif is an 8-stitch repeat, so it's not a difficult motif to expand on. So I do think that's a little strange. I mean, if you're willing to do the math, you can figure it out yourself, but you know, when you pay for a pattern, you shouldn't really have to do that. And so that's one thing I would say that is a little bit disappointing. I don't know if maybe that's something that she's adding on more now, although I don't actually think this pattern is that old. So I'm not sure. Maybe there were some reasons that she didn't that I just am not seeing, and that's entirely possible. So just one thing to note. But I'm at the point now where I'm feeling really great about this. I actually tried this on again earlier this morning, and it's actually fitting kind of exactly how I want it. I think right now, granted, most of the width down below is the unblocked portion, but we're looking at about, it looks like I've got about 8 inches of positive ease, which is great. If I'm somewhere between the 8 to 10 inches of positive ease, then I'm going to be very happy. And so it should give me a nice oversized look, and I'm comfortable with that. That's what I want. Even though I've been so back and forth about, do I want the big bulky oversized for my frame? I don't know. But the thing is, realistically, I'm probably gonna do like a French tuck with it, or have it, you know, in a way to where I'm just going to enjoy this for what it is. And I think the beauty of the sweater is that it's a little bit oversized and not super fitted. So yeah, so I'm very, very excited to have some good progress on this. Since I didn't before, I will mention now the yarns I am using are, what are these? These are Illimani Amelie in the color, I think this is Hunter Green. And then the white is just Bone. And this is a chainette blown yarn, and it is a silk, alpaca, and merino blend. So I think that the core is silk, and then the fibers that are blown through it are alpaca and merino. It's only like 4% merino, so it's mostly alpaca, which is what gives it this incredible drape. I mean, the yarn is super soft, so it's more of like, it feels like more of a baby alpaca than your kind of more itchy alpaca. And it's just so incredibly drapey, and it's a beautiful yarn, absolutely stunning yarn. The definition on it, hopefully you can see that really nicely. I think the definition of the stitches is gorgeous, but it's also one of those yarns where it's got quite a nice halo on it. So that even though we've got really big stitches, I mean, what size, did I write what size needle I'm using? Well, I didn't. Yeah, so I think we're mainly using like a 5mm needle here. And so you've got nice big stitches, which means this moves super quickly, but because it's got a bit of a halo on it, the stitch definition isn't super obvious. You're more so just seeing the color variation and that nice halo. So this I'm really enjoying. I don't think, knitting time-wise, it's not going to take me that much longer. You know, I'm getting closer to the length that I want. I probably just have a few more inches to do for the length that I want, and then I'll just need to pick up and add the sleeves, and that'll be super quick. But there are a couple other things that I am working on, which will slow this down a little bit. Unfortunately, one of the projects I'm working on, I cannot share at all until it comes out in the summer, but that is well underway. So my secret project, which all I'm gonna say is a summer top. My secret summer top is well underway. We're getting closer to separating for sleeves, which is super exciting. And yeah, so I'm working through that. I have kind of my tentative pattern written up, and I'm following that pattern and just making notes as I might be changing things or adjusting things. So I'm hoping for that pattern, I'm hoping to get that done in the next month and have that off to a tech editor and testing and all of that good stuff. But I'm trying to make sure, because that's more of like my work knit, and then this is more of my fun knit. So I'm trying to make sure that I still get a good amount of time in for this guy so I can get some progress on it. So once it gets nice and chilly, I will have this ready to go. Also, I feel like this is gonna be just a really nice holiday sweater, just with that green and white. It feels very festive. I'm already clearly feeling very festive because I've got my my Trim the Tree socks, which are well underway in testing. Testing is going fabulously for those. If you follow me on Instagram, then you've probably seen I've been sharing the testers' photos, and they're coming up with such fun combinations. And so we're getting kits ready for that now. I say we, but really Wendy at Hazel Knits is getting the kits ready for that. So as soon as that pattern goes live, kits will be available. And she just sent me yarn to work on the cowl. So we had a bit of a delay with the yarn production, which is why so the cowl is a little bit delayed. And so I'm actually thinking that I'm thinking that because I'm going to be starting that cowl probably next week, realistically, like I'll get it to my tech editor and then it's going to be early November. And so I'm almost debating if I should forego testing for the cowl, especially since, I mean, it's just going to be a small Mobius cowl. It's not going to be a garment. It's not going to be anything with different sizes. So I'm wondering if I'm wondering about maybe foregoing testing for the cowl just so I can get that pattern out so people have enough time to knit it for the holidays. Because I just worry that with the schedule the way it is, if I knit it really fast, write the pattern really fast, get it to tech editing, let's say in the next couple of weeks, either it has to be a crazy fast test knit, or, you know, realistically, you know, the test knit is not going to be done and the pattern available until beginning of December. And yes, you have a month to knit that, but I don't know, thinking about maybe you want to knit it for a gift knit, or maybe you want to knit it so you can wear it all through December. I just worry that getting it out in December might be too late. So it might just be one of those where I push it out a little bit sooner. Obviously, having my tech editor go through it thoroughly, as she always does. She always finds my errors, and typically once a pattern like this is in testing, especially my cowls, the testers aren't really finding errors. They're testing it for fit. If anybody has found an error, it's literally just been a typo. You know, it's not been anything to do with the pattern. So if this were a garment, like something at all that needed to be fitted, even like a sock, I would absolutely do testing and just deal with the weight. But with this, I might forego that. But let me know your thoughts on that. Like if you have any hesitation to buying a cowl pattern that hasn't been tested but has been tech edited. I'm curious to know your thoughts on that, because I always want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence on, you know, I want a pattern to be its absolute best, most perfect before it gets to you to buy. And then of course, like anytime, if anybody were to ever find an error, the pattern would be updated and you would get the updates. So it's not like you would be stuck with a pattern that was incorrect, which you wouldn't be anyway. Anyway, long tangent. Oh my God, I feel like because I don't have quite as much to show, I'm just going on these tangents, but hopefully this all makes sense to you. I realized I didn't even fully finish talking about my sweater, and I just kind of went into the Trim the Tree patterns. But yeah, so that will hopefully be coming soon. So I'm gonna probably next video you'll see some serious progress on my cowl, assuming the yarn comes soon, which it should, because I know she just sent it out, I think yesterday. So it should probably be here soon. So keep an eye on that, but the socks are coming super soon. So it looks like now I think the socks will be out in just my time currently, just a couple of weeks. By the time this video comes out, a little less than 2 weeks. So that will be coming out super soon. Let's see, what else do I have to talk about? Oh, there is one more exciting thing to talk about. It's another thing that I can't actually show you because I don't have any more, but so as you know, if you've watched me before, then I am a blue sky maker, which means that I'm in like a partnership with them where they will send me yarn for 2 projects a year. And basically I have full control on what I do with that yarn. I create my own pattern, and you know, the pattern is my own, and they'll just help me promote it. And I obviously use their yarn in the pattern, so it's kind of a cross promotion thing. But on top of that, if you follow Blue Sky Fibers, then you'll know that every quarter, I think, or at least a couple times a year, they will do a call for designs where they are looking for designers to submit proposals for design ideas they have, where you will design the pattern, you will knit up the pattern, and then obviously they send you the yarn, and then they will pay you for the sample as well as the pattern, and then they own the rights to the pattern, and then you mail the sample to them, and then that's what they use for their promotion. So I applied for one, I guess like this time last year, for their fall and winter of 2024. And I submitted a proposal for the Aurora Infinity Cowl, which is officially out now, so I can finally talk about it. I'll pop up some photos here so you can see what I'm talking about. But this is a pattern, so if you look under my Ravelry designs, it should show up, but it is housed under Blue Skies Patterns. And so this is basically an infinity cowl that I designed with Woolstok worsted in a few different colors. It's exciting that I can finally talk about it because I feel like I worked on it so long ago and I couldn't share it. I couldn't post a single post about it, and that is really hard for me. So, and it's actually like a long cowl. So it's 10 inches high, and then the full length before you seam it is 60 inches. So it's technically 30 inches once you've seamed it, because it's meant to actually be double wrapped around your neck. And that means that you've got tons of squishiness, tons of fabric to keep you super warm. You don't have to double it up if you want to just keep it long. For me personally, I designed it so you could just double it up because I love a doubled up big folded cowl when it's really, really cold. I love those like, if you're willing to put in the time to do that whole length, I find it really satisfying and really worth it. So this is one of their holiday kits for the season for this year. And that means that you can actually buy the kit at your local yarn store. Now, I say that, but your local yarn store has to carry Blue Sky Fibers, which I know a lot of them do, but there are some that don't. But you can also, if you're not seeing it and you're interested, definitely ask them if they can get it, if it's available. I chatted with the folks at Blue Sky, and they said that the way they do it is they'll send the catalogs to the local yarn store, and I think the store kind of picks and chooses the patterns they want to house, just depending on what they think is going to sell. But they said that they often do requests. So, you know, if you're going to your local yarn store and you don't see it, definitely ask them about it. But it's really cool. This is my first pattern that I've done that's officially out that I'm seeing that's kind of like housed elsewhere. So like I love self-publishing my patterns because, you know, that's fun. I see the returns immediately. But there's something really cool about seeing a design I've done actually like officially modeled on somebody in an official photo shoot and all of that, and like in a kit that you can go buy in a store. Like, that's really cool. So it's just really fun to see that that's finally out. I feel like a year in the making. At this point, I feel like I've almost forgotten about it. So it's fun to see it get a little bit of new light. And yeah, so that is out now. So take a look at that if you are interested. Let's see, I think that's gonna do it for my knitting content for today. Like I said, Not a ton of updates since the last normal podcast, but you know, some things to talk about. There's always progress somewhere. And then in terms of my book chat, because I feel like it's also been a long time since I've talked about my books. As you know, if you have been watching, I have been deep in the rabbit hole of the ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. And I am finally on book 5, which is A Court of Silver Flames. And oh man, so much has happened. I mean, book 4 I flew through, which I guess, you know, the book was tiny. So, and then book 5 is interesting because, so I think it's just a 5-book series, and books 1 through 4, you're following the main character, Feyre, and then eventually her love interest, who I won't say just in case you haven't started. And you're kind of following their journey, and Feyre is the main character throughout all of this. But now, in book 5, all of a sudden, Nesta, her sister, and Cassian are kind of the main characters, and they are kind of swapping back and forth. And I don't know, I mean, I'm really enjoying the book, and I am reading this quickly too. I think I'm about 30 or 40% through it now. But sometimes Nesta can be such an unlikable character that sometimes I struggle, and I find myself missing Feyre a bit, and you get little glimpses into Feyre's life at this point, but you feel so disconnected, it feels a little bit weird. So I'm curious to see how that all wraps up, but thoroughly enjoying this book, and I don't expect it's gonna take too much longer for me to finish it. Yeah, this has been a really fun series to read. It's been a while since I've gotten into a book series instead of just the one-off books, and I forgot how much I love to have a series because I love to be in that universe. And I do feel like when I'm done with this book, I am gonna feel a little sad. Like I think it's gonna feel like there's a bit of a hole because I've just been a part of this whole universe for so long. But that's where I am with that. So that's my book update for the week. And I guess that is it. So I know this is a bit of a shorter episode for me, although it looks like we're almost at 40 minutes, so I think we're good. But if you stuck around until the end, thank you so much for watching. I super appreciate it. And if you would like to get in touch with me, you can find me at meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry. I am meeshyfrazz@gmail.com. And then you can also find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. So I will chat with you more next time, and thanks for watching. Bye.